The United States Navy operates 11 massive aircraft carriers, floating fortresses that house thousands of sailors. But keeping an entire city at sea well fed is no small feat. Every single day, these ships serve a staggering 93,000 meals. But how exactly does the Navy manage to pull this off? What's the real cost of feeding an entire fleet? Who gets the best meals? And why could something as luxurious as steak and lobster be a bad omen for sailors? There's more to Navy chow than meets the eye. Deep inside the steel walls of an aircraft carrier, past the roar of jet engines and the controlled chaos of flight operations, lies one of the most important parts of the ship, the galley. This is where culinary specialists, the backbone of the ship's food operation, work tirelessly to prepare thousands of meals a day. But surprisingly, they don't get to decide what's on the menu. The United States Navy is responsible for feeding over 300,000 sailors stationed all over the world. If you've ever struggled to plan a big dinner for family and friends, imagine feeding an entire global fleet. To simplify this massive challenge, the Navy follows a strict 21-day cycle menu. This means that no matter where a ship is stationed, whether in the Pacific, the Atlantic, or the Indian Ocean, every sailor eats the same meal on the same day. If it's taco night, then it's taco night across the entire fleet. This system isn't just about efficiency. It ensures that every sailor gets the right amount of nutrients to maintain peak physical and mental performance. But on holidays, the routine is broken. On Thanksgiving, USS Ford might be serving roasted turkey, while USS Nimitz is dishing out steak and lobster. But here's an interesting question. Why does one ship get an extravagant meal while another gets something more budget-friendly? A single serving of steak and lobster costs around $25. Meanwhile, an entire turkey, which feeds multiple people, costs roughly the same. So how does the Navy budget for meals when some cost significantly more than others? That's where the BDFA, Basic Daily Food Allowance, comes into play. Each ship receives a daily food budget based on the number of sailors on board. For example, if an aircraft carrier has 5,000 personnel and the BDFA is $22 per sailor, that ship gets a budget of $110,000 for food that day. Every meal eaten is deducted from that budget, and by the end of the year, the ship must have spent nearly all of its allocated funds without exceeding them. If the crew enjoys an expensive meal today, they'll have to make up for it later with more cost-effective options. So don't be surprised if steak and lobster night is followed by a week of simple, budget-friendly meals. But in the past, a high-end meal meant something entirely different. A surprise steak and lobster dinner was often a sign of bad news. If a ship's deployment was extended, leadership sometimes used a fancy meal to soften the blow. Sailors quickly caught on. If a lavish dinner appeared on a random night, it usually meant they wouldn't be going home anytime soon. And speaking of disappointments, one of the biggest complaints about food on an aircraft carrier isn't the quality, it's how long it takes to get it. During meal hours, long lines snake through the galley as thousands of sailors wait to be served. By the time they get their food and find a place to sit, it's already cold. And while sailors eat, the galley crew is already hard at work, cleaning, preparing, and planning for the next meal. Feeding an aircraft carrier requires an enormous kitchen, equipped with industrial-grade cooking equipment built for mass production. Huge steam kettles, each holding up to 60 gallons, prepare soups and stews in bulk. Griddles churn out burgers and sautéed vegetables. Enormous ovens, big enough to fit an entire pig, are used for baking everything from pizzas to dinner rolls. And when it comes to making bread, some ships are equipped with automatic dough rollers, which can shape hundreds of rolls in just minutes. But despite all the high-tech equipment, it's the human effort that makes everything possible. Culinary specialists begin their work before most of the crew even wakes up. Lunch preparations can start as early as 4 a.m., and dinner preparations often begin before breakfast is even served. Once the supplies arrive, sailors immediately get to work unpacking and organizing everything. The ship has specialized elevators designed to move food and supplies deep into storage areas. But the most important resource on board isn't food, it's water. Aircraft carriers have a near limitless supply of fresh water, thanks to built-in desalination systems. These systems convert seawater into drinkable water, providing for the needs of thousands of sailors and keeping the ship operational. And when it comes to keeping morale high, there's one other drink that sailors look forward to: beer. Alcohol has been strictly prohibited on U.S. Navy ships since 1914. But under a special rule, if a ship has been at sea for 45 consecutive days without a port visit in sight, the commanding officer can authorize a beer day. On these rare occasions, sailors are officially allowed to enjoy 2 beers on the flight deck. Unofficially, let's just say some manage to get their hands on a little extra. But when it comes to the best food in the Navy, it's not found on an aircraft carrier. Believe it or not, the best meals in the fleet are served hundreds of feet below the ocean, on submarines. Submarine life is a different world. There's no sunlight, no fresh air, and limited space. In such an extreme environment, food plays a crucial role in keeping morale high. That's why submariners often get the highest quality meals in the Navy, cooked by some of the best chefs in the fleet. Meanwhile, back on aircraft carriers, the quality of food depends on the circumstances. Some items, like desserts, are considered luxuries because they take up valuable freezer space. Ice cream, for example, is usually reserved for special occasions like the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, or Christmas. So, if you ever find yourself eating ice cream on an aircraft carrier on an ordinary day, you might want to brace yourself, because a surprise dessert could mean bad news. And speaking of reminders, inside nearly every Navy dining area there's a small table set for one, a silent tribute to those who never made it home. It's called the POW-MIA table, also known as the missing man table. An empty chair for those still unaccounted for, an inverted glass symbolizing those who cannot drink a toast with their brothers and sisters in arms, a slice of lemon, a reminder of the bitterness of their fate, and a pinch of salt for the tears shed by waiting families. It's a table meant for one, but it speaks for many. From feeding 93,000 sailors daily to managing tight budgets and complex logistics, the Navy's food operation is an impressive feat of planning and execution. Some meals are routine, others are special, and some, like a steak dinner served on an unexpected night, are unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. But whether it's a submarine chef crafting the best meals in the fleet, or a culinary specialist working tirelessly to feed thousands, one thing is certain: a strong Navy runs on good food. So the next time you sit down for a meal, take a moment to appreciate the effort, the planning, and the people behind the plate.